Renaissance players for that sublime interlude, and while they're being helped from the stage with their multitude of fascinating instruments, I'll read a couple more tributes. A short tribute. I find it difficult to write a few lines about my parents and their many contributions to the shul and to the Sydney community as a whole. Firstly, since I left Sydney almost 25 years ago, my personal recollections are often hazy and childlike. In addition, how can more than 30 years in the Great Synagogue be summarised in a few words? At any rate, instead of raising tribute to the past, I would like to bestow a blessing on my parents. May the next 30 years be as filled with achievements and service to the greater community as the last 30 years. Shmuel. Another one. As a child, I thought that growing up as a rabbi's daughter was the most normal thing in the world. Just as my friends were variously doctors' children or plumbers' children, I was the child of a parent who was a rabbi. It was just a profession. But as the years have advanced, I have realised that my parents' jobs as rabbi and rebbitzin of a large community have impacted on my life immensely. I feel more intrinsically connected to religion, to God, to giving to others, to teaching Torah, and to understanding those who are seeking their way to spirituality. This I owe to you, Mum and Dad, who have imparted these values to me, whether consciously or not. Thank you. I expect the next stage of your lives will continue to influence mine to reach greater levels of morality and holiness. Good luck as you move on, and Yasher Koach for what you have achieved thus far. Love from Reba. And now for our pièce de résistance. I call upon someone well known to all of you, a man who has had an illustrious career in the law and serving on the bench, and who has been a champion of social justice in Australian society. Our esteemed congregant, Justice Marcus Armfield, AO QC.
Your Eminences, Your Grace, Rabbis, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I have been given the honour of paying tribute to the service of Marian and Raymond Apple. Of course, apart perhaps from family, I think I have known them for longer and more continuously than anyone else in this room, possibly, for that matter, anywhere. A Melbourne boy by birth, Raymond Apple was my parish priest in the exotic London suburb of Hampstead, when we were each in our own separate ways serving Jewish endeavour in the stiflingly stuffy conservatism of British Jewry. Two Australians at large in the old Dart, separated by the distinctly unstuffy, vibrantly attractive Marian, then no less appealing than she is today. Just as I was a veritable babe in the wider world, Raymond Apple was at the time a very young, unbearded rabbi and teacher finding his clerical feet. Hampstead Shul was just a stone's throw from Lord's cricket ground, where at the time a couple of young blokes named Dennis Lilly and Alan Border were showing the Poms a thing or two about the game they taught us. No less competently and with similar distinction, Raymond was demonstrating to his Hampstead congregants how Australians, or some of us anyway, know more than a little about Judaism and modern orthodoxy, and about tolerance and caring for others who need support and succour. Like me and those Aussie cricket icons, he may then have been a little green about the ears, but he was showing all the skills of the rabbinic art, which we here in the Great Synagogue and in the wider Sydney and Australian community came later to recognise, acknowledge and respect, as those of a quintessential quiet professional who goes about his task of ministering to the faithful with a powerful intellect and the broad and admirable talents of tolerance, gentleness, spirituality and complete commitment, and a quirky but pronounced sense of humour. The sturdy congregants of the Great Synagogue have a record of long-serving chief ministers. Rabbi Apple's immediate predecessors, Rabbis Francis Lyon Cohen and Israel Porish, both also served for 30 years or more. In this respect, we are quite unlike some other congregations which shall remain nameless even though they can almost hear us a few kilometres away. Watch out, Rabbi Lawrence. We have a disturbing tendency of filling our pulpit with the type of superglue that imprisons rabbis, far beyond their reasonable tolerance limits. So when Raymond and Marian Apple joined us all those years ago, they suffered from the combined, almost unforgivable sins that he was a Victorian, she was a Pom, and they came from the concentrated yoke of Anglo Jewry that the Holocaust survivors and Jewish refugees from a dozen lands had happily helped us Australian-born Jews cast off. How quickly they threw off those weighty restraints. How successfully they became us. How well they taught us. How kindly and supportive they became. How hard-working and effective they were from day one to this very day. How they made us laugh. How they comforted us when we cried. How they served our every need and interest. After C.J. Dennis, Henry Lawson and poor old Clancy, you cannot now have any doubts. But for those who think that their outgoing rabbi, now emeritus, is some sort of stuffy adherent to ancient tradition of no current relevance, let me add a few things you do not know about this versatile and appealing man, who has been kind enough to remind me of some events. There was the occasion when, sitting around at home in his shorts, he had not realised that his watch had stopped and had made him untraditionally late for one of his learned Talmudic discourses, shiurim. Lo and behold, he could not find his trousers, just like the former Prime Minister, but for different reasons. He looked everywhere. Marian vainly offered him a pair of hers. But what manly man, still less an Orthodox Jew, would think of wearing a woman's trousers? So Raymond Apple went down in the annals of Jewish history as the first rabbi in the English-speaking world to turn up for a Talmud shiur in shorts. It is reported that some in the class thought he was a Davis Cup player, but when they saw his legs, they knew different. Most people who know him would think the word unflappable was made for Raymond Apple. But I'll bet you don't know of the wedding he was conducting when the bride suddenly passed out, fainted on the spot. She keeled over under the chuppah, the Jewish religious canopy, wedding canopy, possibly at the earnest speech he was giving her about her responsibilities to her husband. Heaven alone knows what he was telling her. But what did our intrepid hero do? He had the bride moved to one side and he went on with the service as if something. I say to the leaders of the other faiths who are here tonight that in the Gospel according to St. Raymond, God's work brooks of no interruptions, even the conscious absence of one of the two key elements of our worship. Let me tell you another Apple congregant who was one of the rabbi's most loyal. There every Shabbat, every Sabbath, and every Yom Tov, every festival. But just as regularly as this guy attended the synagogue, he without fail fell asleep 5 minutes after the sermon started. You could set your watch by his slumbers. On one particular Sabbath, Raymond noticed as he ascended the pulpit that this guy was already asleep before a word had been uttered. Not even a rabbinic throat-clearing cough could disturb our sleeping beauty. After the service, Rabbi Apple could not control his curiosity. He went up to the loyalist and he said, "Mr. Goldberg, you've been falling asleep during my sermons for years. How come today you could not even wait till I started?" To which Goldberg aggressively responded, "Rabbi, I trust you." And finally, there was the congregant who arrived at the shul with his dog. is horrified, so he sends the Sham as a type of concierge, I suppose, to talk to the bloke. Stephen, you like being a concierge. Anyhow, he said to this guy, he said, "Sir, you cannot bring a dog in here. This is a house of worship." "But," says this pious Jew, "this, sir, is a Jewish dog." "That's absurd," responded the Shams. "Dogs don't have religions. You don't know our rabbi. I can't tell him that the dog is a Jew. What do you mean?" "Well," he says, "watch this." And he turns to the dog and he says, "Heine." The dog, after the traditional woof, stands up on his hind legs, reaches into the bag around his neck, takes out a kippah, one of these things, and puts it on his head. Rabbi Apple, noticing this, is quite speechless, but the shamus is quite laid back. "No, so," he says. The guy calls out again, "Heine," at which time the dog stands erect again, reaches into the bag, takes out a tallis, a prayer shawl, and as quickly as he could utter whoop, he puts it around his shoulders. Raymond is almost apoplectic in his signals by this stage, but like Pharaoh with the plagues, the shamus is unmoved and ploughs on. "Look, sir, you will have to take the dog out. My rabbi is going through the roof." "All right then," says the guy. "Heine," he says a third time. At which the dog gets up again, reaches into the bag again, takes out a siddur, a prayer book, and commences to daven, to pray. Tolerant to the end, but almost in a state of total paralysis, Raymond goes up to the bloke, and ever the polite gentleman, he says, "Look, sir, I've seen all that." He said, "This dog does not belong in a synagogue, he belongs in Hollywood." He says, "Take him there, you'll make millions." To which the guy retorts without a breath, "I know. Maybe you should talk to him, Rabbi. All he wants to be is a dentist." Well, my 5 minutes are up and they wouldn't give me an extra 5 minutes to talk about Marian, so I'll just have to be content with relating the practice of a former synagogue official who made a habit of telephoning the Apple's home and saying, "Hello, Marian, this is Moshe, can I speak to the boss?" To which he quickly answered, "You are." I am delighted that my sprightly young mother is here with us tonight. And as she will attest, my revered and much missed father used to say, "In my house I make the major decisions and my wife the minor ones. The major ones are whether we declare war, introduce capital punishment and raise taxes. The minor decisions are where we live, how many kids we have and how we spend the family budget." Well, I don't know who made the major and minor decisions in the Apple household, but I do know that Marian's contribution to the quality and success of her husband's ministry in the Great Synagogue has been dynamic, dramatic, and deep. The changes that he has introduced to facilitate and expand women's participation in the service, his fatherhood of the Women's Tefillah group in which my daughter Shelley, who is here tonight, also plays a leading role, his degenderisation of the service and his public role in developing and fostering initiatives to embrace Australia's Indigenous peoples and so many other suffering and discriminated peoples have all had their origins in Marian, as has her modesty and friendship to us all. I conclude by quoting the man himself. In a recent edition of his unique weekly publication, Oz Torah, which I for one read avidly, Raymond answered a congregant's question, "When are you going to write your memoirs?" To which the rabbi answered, and I paraphrase, "I am not. I do not wish to big note myself, nor do I think my life story is dramatic enough to warrant being written up. When I was in primary school, I, like most others, had an autograph book. One of my teachers wrote in my book the Shakespearean sentence, 'To thine own self be true.' Raymond wrote in Oz Torah, 'I had never heard of Shakespeare, nor did I know at the time what the words meant. In time I have learned, and in the years since, I have tried to be true to my own self. I have made mistakes but never of wanting to be someone else. He then quoted a Hasidic sage who once said, "In the world to come they will not ask me why I was not Abraham or why I was not Moses. They will ask why I was not myself." Like Raymond Apple hoped in his writing, I am sure that he will not have to face that question himself. As we bid them the fondest of farewells, we pay tribute to their commitment, their affection, their industry and sheer hard work, their unmatched representation of Jewish interests, philosophy and people in the wider community. Thank you for giving us so much of the best, so much of yourselves. We wish you a long and happy life ahead, together with your children and theirs, now 17 grandchildren. May God always go with you.
Your Excellency and St. Nicholas, Mr. Premier and Mrs. Carr, Your Eminences, Marcus, Herman, Roz, colleagues, family and friends. Thank you, Your Excellency, Mr. Premier, for gracing today. Marian and I at the Great Synagogue have always had a warm relationship with you and your distinguished predecessors, including the former Governor, the Honourable Horton Samuels and Mrs. Samuels, whom we welcome tonight. Thank you, Marcus, for your, I was going to say eloquent tribute, but when you say unique tribute. We've always enjoyed your and your parents' friendship and encouragement, and the support of so many other leading members of the congregation. Another good friend, Clive Kessler, has written a moving tribute in tonight's program, and we thank him. As a child who was taught the polite way of leaving someone's birthday celebration, I got used to saying, "Thank you for the lovely party. Tonight too is a party." We did not want the occasion to be maudlin. Recent weeks have given me opportunities to give solemn and serious farewell speeches, but tonight he is light-hearted. The motif is not Shakespeare's "parting is such sweet sorrow." It's not sweet. I hope not too many people are happy to see us go. Nor is it sorrowful. After years of overextending ourselves, it's time for the wisdom to know when to step aside. As a child, I knew that this was my calling. I recall childish attempts at sermons given to my siblings in the backyard. My first serious sermon was in Hobart, though when people fidgeted, I blamed myself and did not realize that in a synagogue built in 1845, the seats were bound to be uncomfortable. My first sermon in London was at Marble Arch, where the Chazan announced an added attraction, a sermon by Mr. Apple of Jews College. My ministerial career has covered 45 years and has covered 2 London congregations, Bayswater and Hampstead, and then the Great Synagogue. I think I've achieved something, but the psychologist Wilhelm Wundt spoke of heterogeny of ends, whereby you never achieve your exact goal, but either go beyond the goal or not quite reach it. I leave it to history to judge me. But that's too serious for tonight. Instead, let me quote myself. In South Africa some years ago, I gave an illustrated lecture entitled "Jewish Humor is no laughing matter." By contrast, synagogue life is sometimes a laughing matter. The Great is no exception. How can I forget the Yom Kippur, when when the Governor-General was due to arrive, and Izzy Green stood in the pulpit to get the congregation to rise, and in a Sergeant Major's voice audible in the street shouted, "Quiet!" Or the Anzac Day, when the caretaker Mick did not arrive for the Friday evening service, and Reverend Gluck and I went looking for him in all the local pubs. or the flood in Roslyn Gardens, which engulfed my car, and I took off my shoes and socks, rolled up my trousers, and wearing my black hat and clutching my briefcase, waded round to the Belfers and wondered why they found it funny. Or the weekday mornings, when Met and Werman bickered constantly until Jones announced, "A Yiddish word," and all went quiet. Or the day when the same Jones left his tefillin in my car while he went upstairs to get his false teeth. And when the police moved me on, he was devastated, not because I had gone, but because his tefillin had. Countless characters, innumerable episodes, so many stories, so many memories. Baruch Hashem, I've had a good relationship with my congregants. Not like the Chazan in another shul who used to say, "I wish my president were a lantern." Asked why, he would say, "By day he should hang, by night he should burn." My congregation and I have had many good years together. For my part, I've tried to understand human frailty and occasional disloyalty. Reverend Gluck used to quote from somewhere, "I fed you bread and you threw back stones." The congregation have got used to my foibles and generally forgiven them. I've been given much help and support by colleagues, staff and lay leaders. If we are still friends, it says a lot. Outside the synagogue, I've worked hard, especially for the sake of unity in a sometimes fragmented community and a diverse nation. I know that the Jewish news thinks I'm widely revered throughout the nation, even though they say I'm criticized for being too concerned to enfranchise women in religious life. I've enjoyed being a public figure, and I hope I've performed the task appropriately. Tonight, I sum it up with another synagogue memory, not from Sydney, but from Bayswater. We had a minion man known in the profession as Mr. Lewis. For 3 weeks, the weekday Gabbai was away, and Mr. Lewis was not called to the Torah. I heard him muttering, I forgot already the brachos. We got the message and called him up. He muttered again, don't do me no favors. He never thought he'd be quoted at an art gallery in Australia. But let me quote him. The Great Synagogue has done me and Marian many favors. If we've brought the congregation and community some brachas, we hope you won't entirely forget them. To conclude, 2 sayings, one military, one Jewish. The first saying, old soldiers never die, they only fade away. We don't intend to fade away. We plan to remain part of the cultural and community life of the city and state. The Jewish saying, next year in Jerusalem. For us, please God, it is this year in Jerusalem where our family are our friends, and in Sydney where our friends are our family. Thanks very much for the lovely party and for all the years.
Achievements, the home front. Firstly, in the 22 odd years that I lived at home, I never ever witnessed my parents arguing. Their harmonious relationship created an island of tranquility in what I now realise was a very busy house. A childhood friend once commented that all of us Apple children have the ability to engage in conversation with absolutely anyone, to entertain lavishly at a moment's notice, and to speak in public without embarrassment. The stream of guests that paraded through our house every Shabbat and during the week ranged from Australian high society to the homeless and the mentally insane. Aside from preparing delicious food for the Shabbat meals, my mother also baked a selection of cakes and hors d'oeuvres for 30 to 40 people every second Shabbat afternoon. For over 30 years, she enjoyed success in her career, taught and counselled in the community, and was always home to greet us with a warm smile as she listened patiently to the goings-on in our lives. My father too, despite his unbelievably busy schedule, organised quiet time with his family at least once a week, whether it was a Sunday drive, a trip to a park, or going out to dinner. My father's scrupulous honesty left an indelible impression on all of us. Materialism and flattery were never part of his lexicon. May we all merit to emulate and appreciate them. Mum and Dad, thank you for everything. Love, Adina. And now for some family secrets. As many of you may know, I was born and raised in Sydney, but in my youth I developed a very strange perspective on Britain, the monarchy, and the London Jewish community. I blame my parents for this. At the Shabbat table, my father in particular would love to sing Zemirot and the benching to the tune of Scotland the Brave and many other ardently nationalist tunes. He also would regale me and anyone else present with stories of the often comical actions of his fellow students at Jews College in London and other incidents that occurred throughout his time in the London rabbinate. Whilst many of these stories are unpublishable, they certainly livened the Shabbat table and offered me a very slanted view of British society as my parents experienced it some 30 years ago. On a more serious note, my parents have constantly sought to instill in my siblings and me the primacy of the three principles upon which, according to the Mishnah, the world is said to rest: Torah, Avodah, service of Hashem, and Gemulut Chasadim, loving kindness towards others. Through their own dedication to advancing Torah and Yiddishkeit, and through their work in the community, my parents have offered me an informed, intellectual approach to Judaism, an insight into the timeless truths of our tradition, and understanding of the importance of helping others in our own community and beyond. For this, as well as for their love and encouragement, I am truly grateful to them both. I wish them much health and happiness in the years ahead. Benson. Oh, sorry. Just a small adjustment. Sorry, I've been in the wrong. All set? Right. It's now time for our three confit, which in your program is listed as an operatic selection with the Great Synagogue, Cantor Daniel Sloman and Choir Master Robert Taisha. Apart from giving a time limit, I must confess I've had no control whatever over this fruitful offering, and so disavow any responsibility. Ladies and gentlemen, Daniel and Robert.
A dedication to Rabbi Marian Apple.
Le parole As mentioned before, it's a great honor for us to be here honoring Rabbi Apple, and we'd like to do a song which we do pretty often, the melody, the words, the prayer book, and all along. Here we go. So if you know the words, please join along. Yeah, what's next? Oh, okay. How are we going, all right? Having a great time? All right. It was wonderful to hear the Mozart music. I love Jewish music. You know Mozart was Jewish, don't you? Did you know that? All right, here we go. Some Yiddish song for you. You know, Rossini wrote the Barber Seville, but originally it was written in Yiddish. Not many people know that. So here we go. A Yiddish Barber of Seville. Yiddish. Tim, thank you. Circumcised leave. It's not sure. That's okay. Tra-la-la-la, 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 the boy Shalom. Ich bin der Schatten, wenn du mir das Mäuschen kennt. Na, 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 na. Ich verdiene schon alles, für wen die Liebe brennt. Na, 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 na. Beste Französen, die beste Studieren, die beste Studieren. Sicht meine Kalle. Gib mal zu mir, gib mal zu mir. Mach dich kein Geschrei, mach dich kein Gewalt. Kalle für den Tag, will ich gewinnen bald. Now we have a look who we can find for the Dachshund. We need a shuttle. Heb ik een Mädel, het fijnste Mädel, und Glück ist in euch und das Stadtje. Sie hat meinen Zwiller, sie hat noch einen Zwiller, aber kein Namen, das ist sie nicht. Ich will's nicht. Ah, okay. Hab ich ein zweites jetzt überlegt, damit sie die Nacht wieder geworden wird. Aber wenn sie Malchen sind, sie Malchen wissen nicht hier, das ist in euch. Aber im Norden hat sie ein Größe, als auch Brillanten, als auch Diamanten, nur so schieders, nur was so gedacht sie, also feine schieders, nur was so gedacht sie, no, sie wird bei dir gefällt, ach immer wird ein Stern, aber die Chassene, wenn sie sein. Nach dem Teufel verbringt alle Kreuz, die ganze Bespuche, die Mimi-Bruche, der fette Mendel, die Mimi-Genendel, der feine Gill, und der Rabbi Apple, der Gillstein, wo ich so reingekommen. Wenn du Trinken nach Heimen schön, Wenn wir lachen und singen und tanzen und springen, ins wieder seiner Glanz geschrei. Psst, Schwieger, komm mal her, hey, psst, Schwieger, komm mal hin, Schwieger her, Schwieger hin, Schwieger du, Schwieger dort, Schwieger rein, Schwieger raus, Schwieger rauf, Schwieger rauf, alle ringen sich, alle Stimmen am Ring, allein mit Todesbein, mit Todesbein, mit Todesbein, mit Todesbein, mit Todesbein. Aber wusst du, was Tolles, ich mir schenkt in der Russenkammer. Der Board von Manager, doppelt herrlich von Mimi Genendel, Aluminumwendel, mit Tisches, mit Tischstücken, mit Jacks. Und wusst du, man gegessen auf der Hassene? Also, der harte Leben ist ein diente Gies, patschige Eier mit einzelnen Fies, gepitzte Zwiebeln mit Haare von Bein, Säuerlöckings mit libysche Fähne, der Hasenberg gebrochen, der Nasen verlochen, Schussen kicht die Kalle, Schneider, Schwieger, Schwieger.
What can one say after that performance? I fear Robert will find it boring back in the choir loft and under control during services. However, thank you, Daniel and Robert. And although we're running way behind time, ladies and gentlemen, honoured guests, we come to le dessert on our banquet of entertainment. We have a special dessert for Rabbi Apple, his just desserts. Will it be a souffle or an apple turnover? Either way, it's bound to be sweet. Would you please welcome our special kosher dessert chefs, Messieurs Jeff Sermet and David Fischer.
Monsieur. Merci, Rose. Voila. Thank you very much. Yes, indeed, I am Jeff Sermet. This is my fellow chef, David Fisher. We were chuffed, yes, indeed, chuffed, to be invited to prepare, well, to cook up a little something special for this very special occasion in honour of the great Rabbi and the rabbinical reign that has come to be known as the Apple Epoch.
Indeed, we are, Jeff, and we've come up with a special dish, ladies and gentlemen, which we know that Rabbi and all of you here tonight will enjoy. It's an apple, lightly roasted, presented with a sprinkling of sugar, some cinnamon, and just a little sauce. It's very healthy. There is no schmaltz, because of course it has to be vegetarian.
Absolutely right. Now, of course, David, in addition to the sampling, which you will all enjoy after the formalities shortly, out, of course, in the foyer here, we have a unique way of presenting our special creations, don't we, David? We'd like to sing them. So, without any further ado, we present for you a mini-musical, Great Expectations, or Everyone Loves Raymond. When a rabbi's work is not at all symbolic, because his duties mean he's constantly on call, it can turn into a total workaholic, and the seventh day's the toughest of them all, The executive has annual elections, which means there are always new ones to be tamed, while the ladies will not keep within their section. New connection, and you bet it is the rabbi will be blamed or defamed. When the shul is rife with talking, it's no fun. A chief rabbi's lot is not a happy one. So they're talking up back there. You think this is Rosh Hashanah? Now sometimes the job entails some innovation, like some interfaith discussion with our friends, and improving Jewish-Christian relations. Good relation means you mustn't make some mischief, just amends. You are forced to find a subject for your column, that is moderate while fresh but doesn't shock. Then you must resolve some broigas and make shalom, when communal groups all clash and do their block. When a rabbi does his best work on the run, a chief rabbi's lot is not a happy one. And of course, the 17 grandchildren babysitting surgery in the synagogue office. But sometimes the pleasures outweigh all the sorrows. Like when congregants are silent and polite. And one gets to make the most of one's thesaurus. And observe the wisdom flow from what you write. At a simcha you get dragged into a horror. And have carnivores place beef upon your plate. There you go, mate. Fielding cracks in after women hold the Torah. Thank the Lord that you have Marian for a mate. Simply great. Yes, at Naka's time when all the grandkids come, then a rabbi's lot is just a nabby one. Sullivan, the very model rabbi of the modern Orthodox. And if you don't agree, then in his own words, well, I'm sorry. Or perhaps, what do you want from my life?
Well, Jeff, what we want, what you'll want, is what we've received and more: dedicated, dignified, wise and big-hearted spiritual leadership, plus sermons by email.
Absolutely right. You just when you thought you got away with another absence from shul, where you missed Rabbi's weekly wisdom, there in your inbox, yours Torah online. More than 500 virtual sermons, David, received by thousands, possibly millions of people around the world.
I mean, Rabbi Apple has been at the forefront of gently pushing modern orthodoxy to be more inclusive, more contemporary. It started way back in when he married UK Chief Rabbi Jonathan Sachs in London.
That was a very modern thing to do, David.
Jeff, he married Rabbi Sachs. He married Jonathan Sachs to Elaine.
Well, no, sorry. Obviously, of course. And of course, it's also very modern, of course, to be an Orthodox vegetarian. Not only does it avoid the whole problem of the price of kosher meat, but it also demonstrates a certain humility, certain modesty that befits a rabbi who was retiring long before he even considered retiring.
But rabbis' needs for not just kosher food, but also for kosher vegetarian food has long been, well, way too far confusing for the caterers, the Qantas caterers down there at Mascot. But Rabbi Apple, he's done his best to make it easy for them. Caterers are always grateful that he's satisfied with just a simple salad.
Very nice. So look, also, of course, as we all know, as was mentioned earlier, a fitness fanatic, power walking around Hyde Park, or in the early days, rather incongruously perhaps, around King's Cross, the fit, clean living, healthy lifestyle rabbi, Apple by name and aptly by nature. He's a vegetarian version of a well-known song. In a shul in Sydney, where the CBD bustles, was a rabbi of heart and of wisdom elite. And the question arose, how did he get such muscles when he rarely kibbled and never ate meat? When the Qantas catering is booked, not enough that it is kosher cooked. Must be salad and lentils. The rabbi's beef is with beef, and his favorite movie is Yentl. That's our rabbi Jim. Now our Rav Mazel Tov is a super fit eagle, walks all round Hyde Park every morning and dawn, and it's clear to the world that he's fit as a fiddle, even though around 4 he's suppressing a yawn. When attending bar mitzvahs doesn't pat, but he always has escape routes sussed out, thus avoiding the rabble. What do you want from my life? That's our beloved Rabbi Apple. Long live the Rav and his wife. Long live the Rav and his wife. Now, speaking of fruit and vegetables, apples and trees, our renowned rabbi is, of course, well known for going out on a limb, occasionally bending a few branches while doing it. And despite the reputation of the synagogue at times for being formal, the rabbi has gently pushed the
boundaries in all sorts of areas, hasn't he, Dave?
He certainly has, Jeff. Some examples: women's tefillah, or prayer groups, special women's Shabbat services, working with Aboriginal reconciliation, and interfaith outreach, also known as the art of Gentile persuasion.
We also have on good authority that occasionally Rabbi Apple has been known to circumvent office procedures. That's right, often employing his legendary charm to get assistants out of turn. I know you're busy, but could you please do this for me? Just this once.
But some things, though, must be done in the traditional manner, like speaking and writing the Queen's English. And this is where Rabbi's passion for pedantry and punctuation appears. He knows no greater joy than wielding the red editor's pen
Of the victims
It's full of victims. You know, going through the shul's draft correspondence, looking for stray apostrophes, spelling errors, and his personal favourite, the split infinitive.
to go boldly where rabbis haven't gone before. And of course, the rabbi is a traditionalist in other ways too, though. Of course, when it comes to the internal design of the shul, it's one bit of unfinished business that after 32 years, it's the fact that, of course, the bimah, the prayer platform, has been in the wrong place for some 99 years. Rabbi has put many things and many people in their place over the years, but the bimah is not one of them.
Jeff, what about the rabbi's sense of humour?
Legendary, David. His penchant for sharing jokes with Reverend looked legendary. There's also, of course, the regular schmooze with the elders, the senior members of the congregation before services, and of course those familiar peals of laughter from the rabbi when he hears the punchline. This is a rabbi not so serious as some might imagine. Raymond is a rabbi who seems serious, but he really loves to have a laugh, bursting into peals of joy delirious, sharing jokes with congregants or staff. Raymond is a rabbi, sometimes serious, yet always ready for a laugh. Font of wisdom, bucks the system, charms the secretaries to do his work. Sends sermons all around the world by emails, constantly mobbed by the shul's old females. Rabbi's the toast of the women's tefillah, just don't start with the whole Megillah. Though he's very modest, Rabbi has his charms. That's when he's not scolding from the pulpit with crossed arms. The door is always open, he offers cups of tea, or Johnny Walker just in therapeutic quantities. Now our rabbi loves to edit letters, wielding his red pen like it's a knife. Tries to get past Susan and her fetters, asking, what do you want from my life? Rabbi's pedantic writing antics, he edits anyone but his wife. Very British mixed with Yiddish, he's a wordsmith with the best. Rabbi's a peacemaker to the nation, devoted to dialogue and reconciliation. Rabbi's a soft touch for local schnorrels, never indulges in lotion horror. Though he's even-tempered as a general rule, watch him lose it when there's too much talking in the shul. Tolerant and patient with almost any man, though he's not a Sheikh-Hilleli or Mel Gibson fan. Rabbi's distinguished, gracious and witty. We're going to miss him all around this city. He's been our head, our heart, our Sada, solid as a rock, father of the synagogue.
A just dessert indeed, and well observed. Our last offering this evening is a series of very brief presentations before we all proceed to the foyer to partake of real food, the dessert buffet. Rabbi Marian, would you please come up on the stage? And now I invite Ray Goldberg to make a presentation on behalf of the Friends in the Synagogue.
On behalf of Faith, Friends in the Great Synagogue, I am very happy to present this gift as a token of our appreciation for your participation in our group for many years. I wish you well and a happy and healthy retirement life.
And now I call on Rabbi David Rogert, representing the Sydney Best Inn and the Sydney Rabbinate. Rabbi.
How much time do I have? 1 minute. Well, you're running so late. Well, the good speaker stands up to be seen. Can you see me? Don't take me too seriously. Speaks up to be heard and sits down to be appreciated. Now, I wondered tonight why they put me on that side. And these weakened